Hey everyone! Since I haven't done this in a while, I thought for today's video I'd fill you in on some books I've read recently. Last time I did this, I was partway through the Andromeda Strain by Crichton. I ended up finishing that shortly after I did the video, and I liked it. I do think the first half, with all the setup, was better than the second half. It got kind of caught up in talk of proteins and amino acids and the things in microscopes and such. That's just not as exciting as stuff actually happening. I can report, though, that the 1971 film is very close to the book. The only major changes I noticed were that one of the male doctors was changed to a female, and unless I missed it, my mom's favorite line from the movie, which she quotes fairly often, "The air is thick with Andromeda," was not in the book. Book number 2, I read a young adult novel called Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. It's about a girl who is the creator of an insanely popular webcomic, but in real life she's an awkward high school student with no friends who keeps her online career a secret. Aside from that plot summary, I'm having a hard time remembering what else happened. I think I liked the book. It had some humor, some interesting characters and developments. It included illustrations from the webcomic. That was cool. I seem to remember that I didn't like Eliza that much. She struck me as overdramatic and selfish, and a lot of the drama in her life I thought could have been avoided if she had just handled things differently and not drawn so much attention to herself. But hey, that's me as an adult talking. She is a teenager, and teenagers don't make the best decisions, you know? I guess the concept didn't make a huge impression on me either. If you're not aware of the pressures and anxiety and stress that comes from being an online content creator, especially one who's trying to remain anonymous, then I can see this book being an eye-opener of sorts. But I am aware of what those things are like, on a smaller scale, of course, so there weren't really any earth-shattering revelations for me here. I read a short abstract novel or novella, or maybe it was even a novelette, called The Room, a novel. Well, I guess it's a novel then, since it declared itself, but trust me, it's short, by Jonas Karlsson. I have no idea where or how I found this. It just suddenly appeared on my radar. It's a strange little story about an ambitious office worker who one day stumbles across a room in the office that nobody else believes is there. When he talks about it, they all say, "What are you talking about? There's no room there." He goes in and he feels calm and confident, and everyone else thinks he's crazy. It's a very bizarre story. It's very Kafka-esque. I liked it. I enjoyed it for the most part. I didn't care for the ending, though. I felt let down by the ending. I finally got around to reading a book called Running Out of Time by Margaret Peterson Haddix. I enjoyed this one, which I first heard of as the story that M. Night Shyamalan supposedly ripped off when he made The Village. It's about a young girl living in what she believes is a typical 19th century town, but when children start getting sick and dying, her mother reveals that it's actually 1996. They are living in an artificially constructed town, and tourists come and watch them, but nobody's allowed to leave, so her mother sneaks her out to get help. I have no idea if there's any truth to the Shyamalan Village plagiarism rumor. Regardless, I really liked the book. I do think it was a little predictable in certain spots, but it's a kid's book. I'm not sure a kid would find it predictable, but it had some excellent suspense and some interesting themes, especially for a young person's book. I learned recently that there was a follow-up to Gene Webster's Daddy Longlegs called Dear Enemy that I should check out if I hadn't already. I had a very pleasant experience reading Daddy Longlegs a few years ago, curled up in an armchair in a library, so when I found out there was a sequel, I was very eager to check it out. Dear Enemy continues in the same epistolary style as the first book. The main character writing letters now is Sally, a young society woman and friend of Judy's who is reluctantly persuaded to take on the job of running the orphanage temporarily, except it ends up being not so temporary. I loved Sally's sense of humor and her writing style. It probably took me extra long to get through the book because I had to keep stopping and reading things over that I liked and chuckling over them. I loved the orphans and all the craziness they got up to and the fun little romance. My only complaint, and this was such an odd thing to come across in such a light, fun novel, was that there were a couple ideas expressed in the eugenics line that I found it difficult to get over. I find eugenics disturbing and unacceptable in whatever form, so every time Sally said something like, wouldn't it be easier if we could just get rid of this simple-minded, undesirable child, it made me uncomfortable, it was abrasive, and it soured things a bit. Other than that, I really liked the book. This next one has been on my to-read list for a very long time, and it's so short I don't know why I didn't read it sooner. I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. I was already familiar with the story, which has been made into 3 major films. The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price in 1964, which I've seen a couple times. The Omega Man with Charlton Heston in 1971, which I've seen once. And I Am Legend with Will Smith in 2007, which, well, I saw about half of it. I haven't seen any of them very recently, but I would say that the Vincent Price one is possibly the most faithful to the book. The Heston one did a pretty good job, and, well, the Will Smith one, it got the title right. It's a bleak end-of-the-world story about the lone survivor of a plague that has turned everyone into vampires. Robert Neville is the last man standing, fortifying his house and taking out vampires by day, and surviving miserably alone by night. Like the Andromeda strain, it does get pretty scientific, especially once Neville starts to study the disease, but I appreciated how Matheson tried to make traditional vampire lore as scientific and logical as possible. But combined with the scientific matter and the scary, zombie-like vampires who yet retain some personality, which is creepy, is the overwhelming loneliness of being the last human, hopeless and solitary and hungry for any kind of contact and companionship. It's that aspect that struck me the most, but it's all 3 that have made this short novel a massive influence over apocalyptic science fiction over the last 6 decades. And the last one for today is a book I just finished, My Plain Jane by Brodi, Ashton, Cynthia Hand, and Jodi Meadows. I was eagerly anticipating this book's release this summer because I really enjoyed the first book, My Lady Jane, and this one's a retelling of Jane Eyre, so I couldn't wait to see what these 3 women would do with that story. I spent the first third trying to convince myself I wasn't disappointed. It just was different from what I had expected. My Lady Jane had people magically turning into animals, and that was weird, and it took some adjusting, but I got used to it, and I came to embrace it. It was fun. I really liked it. I expected similar stuff here. I was very prepared for Jane Eyre, but with people who can magically turn into animals. That was not part of this book at all, though. I had mentally adjusted for something that was not even a factor. And then I had to mentally adjust for something else. Ghosts and a secret ghost hunting society. That's a lot of adjusting, and I guess my brain couldn't take it because around 70% I just had to stop lying to myself and admit that I was disappointed. And it wasn't just that I didn't like the changes to the original novel, though I wasn't totally happy with Jane's portrayal. She seemed like kind of a dimwit, and Rochester is basically the villain, at least for a good deal of it, and there are a lot of snarky things said about his behavior from the original book. Seriously, there were a couple times that I questioned whether the authors even liked the original Bronte novel. But really, it was everything else as well. I didn't find it as funny or as endearing as the first book. The anachronistic humor and the contemporary dialogue and the out-of-place pop culture references kind of got on my nerves. The jaunty modern writing style was so at odds with the source material, which was incorporated from time to time, often for comedic effect. That's not to say that I hated this. I thought that Charlotte Bronte as a main character was really interesting and cool, and the romance between her and another character was nice. But, yeah, I've got a very lukewarm response to this one. And I know you might be thinking, that's crazy, surely a Jane Eyre fan is the target audience for a book like this. But Jane Eyre fanfiction, especially when it really turns the original book over on its head like this, it's not my thing. I don't read Jane Eyre fanfiction. It never scores well with me. I don't think I've even finished. I tried Jane Slayer. I got a couple chapters into that and was like, nope. I tried Jane Steele. I know that's a very popular one. I didn't like it. I didn't finish it. So I should have known. I should have known better than to go for this. But, oh well. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the reviews, and if you have any thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned, even if you wildly disagreed with me, go ahead and share them down in the comments below. I look forward to reading them, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching!